I would say just in general, just follow your gut and follow your dream. If your gut is telling you to go one way or another, go with it. Go with it. Don't be afraid to take that leap of faith. I didn't know that I was going to end up in nursing, but it just kind of found me, and it has been an amazing journey, an amazing career. It has served me well over the years. I wouldn't change that for anything. I think if someone had pushed me in that direction, I maybe would have been a little resistant. I wanted to find it on my own. But when my gut told me this is what you need to do, listen to it and just go with it, and just don't be afraid.
Welcome to Navigating Nursing with CompassRN. I'm your host, Ilene. And today I have with us Miss Cidnea. So tell us a little bit about your nursing journey. Where did you start?
Nursing did not come as I wasn't one of those kids that knew they wanted to be a nurse since the age of 5. I was not that kid. My family is actually full of nurses. I have a grandmother and great aunts and aunts, lots of nurses in my family, but nobody ever really encouraged me to go into nursing. They just kind of let me figure it out on my own. So I was in college for a couple of semesters and changed my major twice, trying to find my path, trying to find my passion. And I just was not finding it. So I was ready to just give up on college. I didn't know what I was going to do. And at the time, my brother was new in the military and his wife needed to have major surgery. And he didn't have the time off saved. He wasn't in the military long enough to have time off. So he asked me if I would come and stay with her in the hospital and stay with her at home through her recovery. So that's what I did. It was the perfect excuse not to go back to college the next semester. So I said, yeah, absolutely. So I went and spent a couple of months with my sister-in-law recovering from this surgery. And all those hours in the hospital with her and then at home with her recovery, that's when I decided I wanted to be a nurse. I saw what the nurses did in the hospital and what a difference they made in her recovery and how appreciative she was of all the care that she received. And I enjoyed helping her feel better and just seeing her improve and seeing her heal. That was very, very comforting to me. And I thought, I could do this every day. So that's actually how I discovered nursing. So when she was all better and back to her usual routine, I went back home and the next semester enrolled in the nursing program at the college. And that's when I finished a bachelor's in 3 years. I was so laser focused. I wanted to be a nurse. So that's how I found nursing, or it found me, I guess.
Yes. You found your passion, and then you were, like you say, very focused in on it. And not everyone's path to nursing has to be that, I've been wanting to be a nurse since I was 5. So that's really, good that you were able to, if something just happened when you had that experience and it kind of, changed your focus and you found your path to your calling.
I did.
You've been a nurse for how many years now?
30. I can't believe that. When I say it out loud, it doesn't seem real, but makes me feel kind of old. I don't know. I'm not old enough to be a nurse for 30 years. But yes, 30 years. I've been a nurse for 30 years.
Yes, you've been changing lives for 30 years. Think of it that way.
Thank you. That's a better way to think of it.
So I did hear that you did just go back and got a new degree or an additional degree, got your master's. So what type of master's did you get?
Adult-Geriatric primary care nurse practitioner. Ooh. Yeah. So the majority of my career, I've taken care of adults and specifically geriatric patients. So those that are 65 and older. And I just love that population. I learned so much from them, just about life, about relationships. Like you get to know your patients, you talk to them, you have conversations with them. I mean, you spend hours with them when you're in the hospital. And I worked in the intensive care for many years. So there, the ratio is much lower. So you may have max, usually 2 patients. So you have a lot of time to spend with your patients, which I love. I love talking. as you can tell. But I always connected with my patients, and I would just ask them questions. How did you meet your spouse? What'd you do for a living? And I just would love talking to them. So I just love that population. So it was very clear that I was going to do adult geriatric. I am not a pediatric nurse. I've taken care of a couple of pediatric patients here and there during my career, and I love kids. I mean, I have several of them myself, but as far as a pediatric nurse, that just wasn't for me.
Right.
I would get too emotionally involved. So adult geriatric and primary care, because I've spent a lot of years in the hospital, and I just can't do those long shifts anymore. So I needed something more outpatient, more business hours. So primary care was
okay. And so within your 30 years, what areas of nursing have you worked in?
Several different areas. I started out on a surgical floor doing general surgeries and orthopedic surgeries. And then I was a new nurse still, and I was hungry for information and just wanted a challenge. So I moved to the intensive care unit, cardiac intensive care is where I started. So then I was hungry for information, right? I wanted a challenge. So I moved to intensive care, cardiac intensive care mostly, but I also did some surgical and some general intensive care. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. But then again, I was kind of getting restless. I was young and still wanted some adventure. So I started travel nursing. So I did travel nursing for about 6.5 years. I traveled with a good friend of mine who was a nurse, and she and I moved from state to state. Our assignments were about 13 weeks at a time, and we just toured the country while working and having a great time. And then I met my husband on one of my travel assignments.
Oh.
So then I decided, okay, well, I guess it's time for me to settle down. I continued in intensive care for a while, but after a few years of that, it can be intense. It can be very emotional.
For sure.
You spend a lot of time with your patients, and sometimes you get emotionally involved, and sometimes the outcomes are not positive, and no matter what you do. And so it took its toll on me emotionally. So again, I was getting restless. I just needed to do something a little different. And I had learned about forensic nursing, and I had taken a class once on a travel assignment introducing me to forensic nursing, because I had gotten a flyer in the mail, and I was like, what is this? I didn't know what this was. So took this class in Miami, and I was hooked. And so I was offered a position here in Houston with the medical examiner's office as a forensic nurse. I had a contact, from the forensic nursing class, and she was working there. And so she and I kept in touch, and she called me, and she's like, we have open positions. Why don't you come? So I went down, spent the weekend with her, and spent a little bit of time in the office, and then interviewed for the position, and was offered a position there at the medical examiner's office as a nurse death investigator, a forensic nurse investigator. And so my husband and I were married about 9 months at that time. And I said, so when you want to move to Texas? We lived in Massachusetts at the time. Like, you want to move to Texas where we have no family and no friends? I mean, and he said, sure. Surprisingly, he said, sure. So we moved to Texas. I did that for a couple of years. But again, emotionally, once we started a family and I had my first child, it took an emotional toll on me. So I needed to get back to patient care. I needed to get back to bedside care. So I did home health for a few years. And during that time at home health, I had a couple of infusion patients, and I was reminded that I always enjoyed starting IVs. And so eventually that kind of morphed into needing something with regular business hours. Home health, sometimes you can get stuck on the other side of town, and I have kids in daycare at the time. And so rushing through traffic and trying to pick them up on time, my schedule wasn't real predictable. And so I needed something with predictable hours. And so that's what led me to infusion nursing. It was in a clinic. It had regular hours, no weekends, no holidays. And so in order to be there for my family, I started doing infusion nursing, and the rest is history. That's what I have been doing that for about 14 years now, 14 or 15 years. And I love it. I love infusion nursing.
Okay. So you found your other niche within nursing.
Yes.
And so you touched a little bit on the work-life balance. So talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you manage that? You working as a nurse, going to school and working as a nurse. So how do you manage that?
That was a challenge. That was a full-time job in itself, just trying to figure out all of that. But I have to say that having an amazing husband that was very supportive and was there for me to kind of pick up the slack, if you will, and fill in the gaps and keep the kids fed and get them to where they needed to go. Yes. And I waited until my kids were a bit older. They were all close to high school or in high school age when I decided to go back to school for my master's. So they were a lot more independent, didn't need me quite so much. I mean, sometimes they don't even know that I'm in the house or not. I mean, teenagers, right? Yes. They're always. So once they became more independent, it was a little bit easier. So they were able to kind of fend for themselves when, mom had a lot of schoolwork or, had to work late or what have you. But an amazing support system, including my husband and my kids and, my friends that just always supported me and were there to help me with the kids when I needed it. That's kind of, I kind of called on all my resources.
Yes, you definitely have to have a good support system, being a nurse in general, but especially while you're in school and, to have that good work-life balance.
Definitely.
Yes. So is there anything within your nursing journey that you would change if you could?
Wow. What would I change? I have loved nursing. I think if I were going to change anything, maybe I would have gone back to school sooner, maybe before I established a family or maybe before I got married and started a family. Maybe I would have gone back to school sooner because it was challenging having 3 kids and, working full time and, grad school and all the responsibilities that come with that. I think that's probably what I would change, just maybe take that leap into master's degree a lot sooner.
A lot sooner.
Yeah. A lot sooner.
And so if there was a nuggets of knowledge that you would want to pass on to the nurses that are coming up behind you, what would you tell them? If there was one thing that you were like, this is something that you need to put in the forefront of your thought.
Wow.
I know it's hard. Only one thing.
I know. One thing.
Okay. You can say a couple.
Okay. I would say just in general, just follow your gut and follow your dream. If your gut is telling you to go one way or another, go with it. Go with it. Don't be afraid to take that leap of faith. I didn't know that I was going to end up in nursing, but it just kind of found me, and it has been an amazing journey, an amazing career. It has served me well over the years. I wouldn't change that for anything. I think if someone had pushed me in that direction, I maybe would have been a little resistant. I wanted to find it on my own. But when my gut told me this is what you need to do, listen to it and just go with it and just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Yeah.
Yes, because sometimes we don't listen to that little voice in there.
That is true.
So that is true. I love that you did that. You listened and you followed your heart. You didn't, just do what everybody else was doing or the whole family. My whole family is this, so let me just do that. Right. Yeah, you found what you loved, and then you've been in different areas, so you got a feel for what you love, and now you're. Yeah. Now I'm kind of transitioning into a provider role. And so that's going to be a whole new adventure for me. I'm going to take all those years of nursing and being an RN and all those experiences, and I'm going to take that into being a provider so that I can be there for the patients in a broader capacity, if you will, do more for them. That's what I'm looking forward to as I kind of step into that arena now. Yes. Well, I wish you the best in your new transitional journey into the provider role. And I just thank you for being here with us and talking with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
You're more than welcome. And so I thank you guys for joining us today. And you can follow us on all social platforms at CompassRN. And as always, there's always a nurse navigator here to help you along your journey, no matter where you are.